And we are now live on YouTube.
Okay, wonderful. So welcome everyone to North Granville's Council meeting number 28 on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. We're pleased to have you this evening. Of course, we continue to meet virtually as COVID times dictate, but there's no doubt that things are opening up as evidenced by lots of activity in various parts of our municipality over this past weekend. And we're just thrilled to see that local businesses are coming back to life or pivoting once again to in-person service where they're able to do so. That being said, we do recognize there are considerable constraints on our retail, especially non-essential retail, and that we do have some business providers like hairstylists, like spas that are either closed or continue severely constrained in terms of how they're having to provide service. So still an uphill battle, and I know council and the municipality is working closely on making sure that we reinvigorate our business community and our local economy to the best extent possible. And we look forward to some additional information about that in the weeks ahead. I know Matt Gilmer with our Economic Development Department is working extremely hard to make sure that businesses are able to shift once again as we look to reopening the economy. So with that, I've just been reminded before we call the meeting back to order that it is bulky items week. And Ms. Dunlop, Councillor Barclay, you're with us this evening. I believe there are 3 locations to purchase those bulky item bag tags, and that is Home Hardware, the Independent, and the municipality. Is that right, Director Dunlop?
That is correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, excellent. I just happened to be at the grocery store earlier today, not the Independent, and someone was making that inquiry. So I know we're working hard to make sure people know where to get those bag tags so that they can avail of a service that many in our community have been requesting for a long time. Finally, I will note that the flags are at half-mast, and that, of course, is in recognition of the tragic fatality of an RCMP officer on the weekend. And I know that this is particularly fitting this evening as we are about to receive shortly a report from our OPP partners in regards to their service to our community. So I want to extend our condolences on behalf of council and the municipality to obviously police officers and members of the policing community for what I know is a tragic development, and always a jarring one when things like that happen. And finally, I would like to say that I think all of council and all of our fellow Canadians were deeply disturbed by the terrorist attack in London, and obviously again, a very tragic death of a family, 3 generations lost in one evening. And we did take some time to craft a statement and to point people to some educational resources in the weekly mayor's newsletter that went out last Friday. And I know we'll be saying more in the coming weeks as we look to mark Anti-Terrorism Day later this month. But I did want to obviously recognize that tragedy as well, because it's obviously another shock to the nation, perhaps not surprising to some, but certainly a shock nonetheless. And with that, I will call our meeting back to order. We were in closed earlier. So we did, in fact, address the agenda. And before inviting the OPP to make a presentation, I'll just look for disclosures of interest, colleagues. Any disclosures of interest this evening? Seeing none. I'll move on to presentations, delegations, and the first one, of course, is from our acting inspector, Joshua Kingsley, who's just joined the OPP Grenville detachment in recent months. But it's been a pleasure to get to know him as a member of the Police Services Board, and I know he's had to navigate some bigger developments early in his leadership. But Mr. Kingsley, we welcome you here this evening and thank you for your service and look forward to your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members of council and the public, for having me here today. I'm not sure if Palak is on the call where she can share the screen of the report with members of council, or... Perfect. Or Jessica, thank you.
We just lost it, but I'm sure we'll get it back.
Yeah.
And just hang on, Mr. Kingsley. I know that's an important piece of the presentation this evening, so we'd like to get it up.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I'm
Is
going to
that what
start.
that's what you're looking for?
This is the report. Yeah, if we can go to page 2, the first page is just a title page. I'll just wait for it to be shrunk down a little bit so everybody could see what I'm referring to here. There we go. So if everybody could see that, the report is broken down into various categories. The first category I'm going to discuss with you is violent crimes. So in 2020, there was one incident of second-degree murder, which was the actual charge laid. There hasn't been an incident of homicide in North Grenville in the last decade. So this is definitely an anomaly that took the community, fairly heavily. The section here is going to focus on the overall numbers of the most prevalent forms of violent crime in the municipality. Those are assaults, sexual assaults, and other crimes against persons. So when we look at the first graph here, it's broken down on a 5-year trend so we can identify what some of the issues are. In terms of violent crimes, the 5-year average is 71 crimes reported during the year. However, in 2020, we had 74 crimes, so we're just above our 5-year average, but we are trending downwards compared to 2029, when there was 82 reported violent crimes in the municipality. The next slide, we're going to start breaking down what those violent crime categories are. So assaults are forming part of our violent crimes. Our 5-year average is 42 violent crimes, and in 2020, we had 39 assaults reported in the municipality. Now, assaults and assault with weapons are also included in this category. So when I looked at the 2019 numbers, I noticed that there was a significant change. There was 29 crimes reported in 2019 and 39 crimes reported in 2020. So I dove into the numbers a little bit and discovered that several of these crimes had multiple occurrences reported, and they were reporting historical crimes. So there isn't a significant trend that I'm concerned with when it comes to assaults, but it is something I'm going to keep my eye on. The next page, please. Sexual offenses. In 2020, there was 11 sexual offenses reported, which was one incident below what our 5-year average was, but significantly lower than our 2019 numbers, where there was 17 sexual offenses reported. So that number is continuing to trend downward and is more in line with what our 5-year average is. And if we can go to the next page. Our other crimes against person includes offenses such as intimidation of a justice system participant, extortion, criminal harassment, threatening, indecent phone calls, explosives and arson, and other such crimes. In 2020, there was 23, which was well below our 5-year average of 37. I did notice there was a significant drop from our 2019 numbers, which was 53 crimes reported and was well above our 5-year average. When I dove into those numbers a little bit, I realized that in 2019, we had a significant amount of uttering threats investigations. So where people were threatening others to create bodily harm and or death, whereas in 2020, those numbers decreased significantly. So that's where the significant draw is for those crimes. Now, if we can go to our property crimes, we'll go to the next page. So in terms of property crimes, in 2020, or 2020, we had 197 property crimes, and our average was 296. So we are well below the 5-year average. And if we go to the next slide, it'll give some context to those numbers. So the next slide is a graph which breaks down our break and enters, our theft under 5,000, and our mischiefs, which are the most popular the most popular property crimes, but tend to be the most reported property crimes. And when we look at 2019, we're seeing a downward trend in all of these categories. So when we do have victims of property crimes, we are ensuring that we offer a program called Safeguard, which assists members of the community in target hardening their residents or their businesses, which prevents them from being re-victimized again and again. And our officers are trained in Safeguard. So if we do see properties that look like they could be susceptible to property crimes, we try to proactively engage our auxiliary unit to identify those. Now, if we go to the last page, we're going to report on drug crimes. So there isn't a 5-year average because drug crimes the enforcement of illegal drug crimes is a proactive policing activity, and therefore these numbers are more of a measure of police activity than accurate reporting on the prevalence of drugs in the community. We have a community street crime unit which focuses on drug activity. In 2020, we had 4 reported possession charges, but we did not have any drug trafficking investigations that occurred within the community. So that doesn't say that it didn't occur, but we did not have any drug trafficking investigations that were initiated or solved within the community. Subject to any questions, that's the annual report for 2020.
Thank you very much, Inspector Kingsley. So I'll just look to council colleagues for any questions or concerns about the report. Of course, Councillor Barkley and I do sit on the Police Services Board, so we've had some opportunity to go through this, but just looking for any feedback from council colleagues. Seeing none at this stage, then maybe what I'll do is I'll invite Councillor Barkley to present the North Grenville Police Services Board annual report to council, and then we'll go back to Inspector Kingsley as well as Councillor Barkley at that time for any questions or discussion. Councillor Barkley, and I know I also recognize Jill Sturdy, who I think will be stepping in for part of that report.
That's right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. To members of the public and council colleagues, it's a pleasure to present the North Grenville Police Service Board 2020 annual report. First of all, I'd like to say that the board's complete annual report to council is found in tonight's agenda package. I won't be talking right through it. And it's also publicly available on the municipal website. So to begin with, the municipality of North Grenville has a duty to provide adequate and effective police services. Council therefore entered into an agreement in 2020 to have police services provided by the Ontario Provincial Police Grenville Detachment at the municipality's cost. The municipality established the North Grenville Police Services Board in 1998. On the screen, you can see the members that served in 2020. Don Sherritt, Bruce Harrison, the mayor, myself, and Deb Wilson. Before I get to the next slide, I'd like to say a few words about Don Sherritt and Bruce Harrison, both of whom resigned their membership to the PSB in March of this year after many years of dedicated service to this community. Bruce was a founding member of the North Grenville Police Service Board in 1998 and served the board many times over the ensuing years. And Don took the oath of office in August 24th, 2011. With their leadership, the status of our Police Service Board grew through the innovative programming that they developed. The North Grenville Police Service Board became recognized as a leader amongst other police service boards in the province during their time on the board. Both Don and Bruce took justifiable pride in ensuring the residents of North Grenville had the best police service available, and we sincerely thank them for that service. Next slide, please. Protocols and procedures that govern the effective delivery of police services in North Grenville are available for the public viewing at the website posted on the bottom of this slide. To assist the board in its duties, the board receives monthly reports from the OPP detachment commander, including performance statistics, crime statistics, and updates on prevention initiatives undertaken by the board or the OPP. Next slide, please. So some of the achievements that we realized in 2020. The contract with the Solicitor General for the provision of police services in North Grenville expired, as I think I mentioned, December 31st of last year. Council, in consultation with the Police Service Board, engaged in contract negotiations over 2020, and in December of that year, entered into a further 3-year contract. Despite the 3-year contract term, this contract will be terminated and the board dissolved when the provision of police services in Ontario transitioned to the new OPP Detachment Board framework under the recently enacted Comprehensive Ontario Police Services Act. So 2021 and 2022 will be transitional years. This change in the Police Services Act obviously required consultations with the Ontario Association of Police Service Board, the OAPSB, of which North Grenville is a member of Zone 2. An OAPSB OPP Conference Summit was held on January 30th of 2020. And the benefit of this event was that members were provided with a review of the legislative requirements coming up. And it also provided members of the police services boards in attendance to an opportunity to network with the key stakeholders as well. So North Grenville was well represented at the summit by PSB Chair Don Sherritt, Vice Chair Bruce Harrison, and Mayor Peckford. Next slide, please. So some accomplishments. Throughout 2020, the North Grenville Police Services Board contributed funds and resources to support the OPP with communications and messaging to the public concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. These communications included COVID-19 messaging related to fraud, domestic violence, and the methods to best contact the OPP during the pandemic. Council has adopted safe driving as a priority, and the Police Service Board responded with the purchase of calming devices, programming, and engaged in an ongoing collaboration with the OPP and the municipality to address this issue. The board received and reported resident concerns regarding traffic-related matters to the detachment, which were addressed at meetings of the Police Services Board. Consequently, speed assessments were performed at the following locations: Kennedy Road, Guy Road between Craig Road and County Road 18, River Road between Acton's Corners Road and County Road 23, Burt's Rapids Road, Concession Road, River Road between Pioneer Drive and Colonel Drive, and Smith Road. Traffic-related concerns regarding the following locations were brought to the attention of the OPP. Shoppers Drug Mart, County Road 43 intersection. Improves the safety of pedestrian crossings. County Road 44 and Depensier Drive. A pedestrian crossing was installed. Concession Road. Concession Road was designated a community safety zone. And speeding concerns in Burt's Rapids, Bishop's Mills, as well as Boundary Road and Stonehaven and the Stonehaven subdivision were also brought to the OPP's attention. Next slide, thanks. So accomplishments. The North Grenville Police Services Board developed and provided funds through the Ministry of Transportation for the Road Safety Community Partnership Program in conjunction with the Municipality of North Grenville, the OPP, the Leeds Grenville and Lanark Health Unit, and the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. This Road Safety Committee was chaired by Jill Sturdy, the municipality's corporate media relations officer. And at this point, hand it over to Jill. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Barkley. So that was a good introduction. And so the Road Safety Public Awareness Campaign was really devoted to the promotion of safe driving practices and road safety. So each month beginning in May of 2020 to November, the Road Safety Campaign focused on a different road safety theme that was identified by the Road Safety Committee. And so each themes, they included speeding, impaired driving, share the road, so both with motorcycles and bicycles, distracted driving, speed reduction, that was in August, of course, when the town of Kemptville lowered its speed limit from 50 to 40, roundabouts, and back to school. So, and, you know, reminding drivers that there'll be more kids out on the roads. We also promoted the safe walking school maps. And so each month, the different theme, we would promote this in different ways. We would issue a public service announcement that was published in the newspapers. And then we also used the funds that we received to print, that went to print ads, so in both of the local papers. And you can see some of the themes here on the screens. We also had radio ads that would run for 2 weeks out of the month. And of course, social media. So both regular posts that would be shared by our partners, as well as some of the paid posts as well to boost some of the messaging. And so the overall effectiveness of the road safety campaign is summarized in the Road Safety Community Partnership Program in 2020, the final report, which is attached here in the agenda.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Final slide, I guess. Finally, in 2020, the North Grenville Police Service Board again was able to present a bursary to a St. Michael Catholic High School graduate who pursued was planning to pursue post-secondary education, and that demonstrated leadership skills in both school and the community. And we were also able to provide a bursary to North Grenville District High School graduate who has demonstrated good citizenship in the school and the community. Also, the PSB provided funds towards a Kemptville Youth Center biannual award presented to a deserving KYC member for their contribution over the year. In conclusion, the North Grenville Police Services Board is committed to overseeing the delivery of police services in the municipality. The board also remains committed to maintaining transparency and accountability between the public and the police and engaging in crime prevention related measures. This ends my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Barkley, and thank you for stepping into the chair position as a more recent member of this board. We appreciate your capacity and appetite to do that. I'd also like to recognize Debbie Wilson. She's joining this evening. She's been a provincial appointee of the Police Services Board for over a year now and a very hardworking member of the board as well. So before I open it up to questions, I do just want to build on your heartfelt thanks and appreciation to both Mr. Harrison and Mr. Sherritt. I can tell you from the minute I stepped onto the board, it became extremely obvious that they were highly motivated to ensure that North Grenville's interests when it came to policing were advanced. And they had, in fact, prior to this council, they had presented to a Ontario Legislative Committee on the forthcoming changes, which are now very much in play when it comes to future configurations of Police Services Board. And when I had the pleasure of traveling to Toronto and really following their leadership in representing the interests of North Grenville and smaller boards, detachment boards, we were a powerhouse trio, and there was lots of good work done at the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards to engage with the Ministry of the Solicitor General on the fact that there needed to be more nuance and more capacity for smaller boards to in fact reserve a meaningful role on behalf of their communities. And as you've mentioned, Councillor Barkley, just by way of update, we are working with our colleagues in other parts of Grenville to advance a proposal to the ministry, and we've benefited from the support of Gary Dyke, our CAO, who's worked with CAOs throughout Grenville to craft some proposals for how we can ensure that North Grenville's interests are well represented under the new legislation. So I want to echo your comments about, the longstanding and very strategic service of Mr. Sherritt and Mr. Harrison, and they saw the future, and that, police service boards would look very different potentially than what they had looked like. And they were really proactive in advocating for North Grenville's interests. So we're not 100% sure what a PSB will look like 6 months from now, but we're sure working extremely hard to ensure that North Grenville has a very strong presence on whatever police service boards we end up with. And there's a lot of collaboration among Grenville mayors right now to make sure that at minimum, there's more than one, which was among Mr. Sherritt and Mr. Harrison's primary preoccupation. So thanks to those obviously former members, and thank you to yourself as well as Jill Sturdy, who's done a lot of work on the road safety campaign, as well as Ms. Wilson. So council colleagues, any questions in regards to what Inspector Kingsley has presented this evening, or what Councillor Barkley has presented?
Yeah, I have my hand up, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Deputy Mayor. I wasn't looking to the left. I'm looking to the left now. Go ahead.
Okay, just a comment. First off, thank you, Councillor Barkley. That was a good report. It's good to know what's happening. And I want to welcome Inspector Kingsley for coming. That's great to have you here. It's first for me to have the police presence on our council meeting, so it's very welcome to, I'm sure, to all of us. And thank you for your report. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here.
If I might, and this is really, I think, for Inspector Kingsley, with his fresh eyes, I know we are knee deep in traffic concerns, and they've come up a lot, Inspector Kingsley, in our community. And on behalf of the community, perhaps I can ask you for just a bit of a take on where you think we sit with some of those traffic concerns. We have this tension between traffic calming and enforcement, right? And how that dance seems to be complicated and nuanced in its own way. We know that the PSB over a couple of years had certainly flagged some traffic concerns, some of which are persistent, some of which are more episodic. Is there anything you'd want to comment on in terms of where we sit with traffic complaints in particular? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you're here, so we might as well avail of your time and make sure you feel like it's of good use.
No doubt, no issues with that at all. Traffic complaints are always something in all municipalities that are of concern, because they impact people in their homes. And especially when we're looking at where most of your traffic complaints are, they're very residential neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And that's where environmental design in future developments is going to come in handy to help mitigate some of these issues. However, what we will do in terms of handling a traffic complaint, the municipality is very proactive in terms of deploying what's called they're doing a speed assessment survey to see if we have analytical data to support the traffic complaint and support enforcement activities. Because 40 kilometers or 50 kilometers an hour in a residential area has the perception to a citizen to look faster than what it actually is. So some people may be obeying the speed limit, but I know in my own neighborhood, when someone's driving 50 kilometers per hour, I say that's way too fast. I have kids here. So what we've done with the municipalities, we've deployed these speed assessment surveys. We will collect in analytical data. If the data supports enforcement activities, then we'll do what's called a focus patrol, which is a high level enforcement, high visibility enforcement in that particular area. And then we will ask the municipality, or we will redeploy a speed assessment survey post enforcement to see if our impact has had any results or not. Ultimately, we're looking for speeds to go down after we see our high visibility enforcement. If speeds don't go down and this becomes a prolific area, then we're going to have to really incorporate environmental design, because enforcement isn't having the impact that it needs to have. But we will continue to enforce the speed limits as they are, and we are gathering better data now than we used to. We have e-ticketing, which is electronic ticketing, so we can pull up historical data on a particular street, whereas we used to have to go to the courthouse and get, if we wanted to pull any street in the municipality and say, what are the traffic statistics for this area? We are now tracking traffic issue warnings as well as traffic issue infractions. So we have a lot more data to solidify enforcement activities or traffic calming initiatives. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but it sort of gives about how we handle traffic complaints.
Certainly, and I appreciate that because we, as a council, hear about it a lot. I think it's helpful for individuals to understand how traffic safety is managed in terms of the enforcement side of the equation. And I think you're right. We have a lot of older subdivisions and a lot of older streets that weren't designed or engineered necessarily to provide that traffic calming that I think many people really want to see naturally in a high growth community like ours.
Yes.
I do have
much.
one other question for you, but I will defer to council colleagues in the event that there are other questions. Colleagues?
I'd just like to
go ahead,
make
Councillor
a comment. Yeah. So since we're still on this item in the agenda, that we've been working very collaboratively with the OPP, speaking now as a liaison for Public Works, our operations superintendent and acting inspector Kingsley and I worked on updating some of the protocols that the police service board had, and acting inspector Kingsley is tuned up to some of the potential changes that we have in terms of our road safety policies. So there are some changes that I think will be very helpful in terms of producing better and safer streets here in North Grenville.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Barkley. And I know that has been a preoccupation of the PSB for some time. So appreciate that we're, I think, getting to streamline some of the processes. A final question really to you, Inspector Kingsley, if you don't mind. And I have just gone through the process with the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, and we look forward to bringing a report back next week on the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. It has been certainly flagged for several years in this community that we haven't had the benefit of a municipal drug strategy. I know Brockville is now in the process of developing one, and I don't know if you have any comment. I know you're familiar with Lanark County, where I think they've moved in that direction a little more quickly than we have. Do you have any comment on how helpful a municipal drug strategy is when we look at OPP policing services, predominance of crime, and if you have any words of wisdom for us as a community that has yet to get there?
A municipal drug strategy is very beneficial for any community. One, it helps, we can make referrals and we can help identify what some of the underlying drug addiction or drug service issues are, because we do know that a lot of property crimes are perpetrated by people who have drug dependency or substance use dependency, I should say. So if we can help identify some of those underlying issues that are causing people to go into drug dependency, that will ultimately help to have a safer community. So having a municipal drug strategy is definitely something that would be beneficial. We have our community street crime team, but it's very enforcement based. What we're seeing more now is we're engaging our mobile crisis response team to work with our community street crime team. So when we are conducting drug investigations and we are arresting people for either drug trafficking or drug possessions, we're trying to get them connected with social services to identify and address that drug dependency or that substance use dependency to try to prevent them from becoming repeat offenders. So anything that can be done to lower the risk to the community is going to be a good program to have.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Sarah. Appreciate it. Anything
pleasure.
else, colleagues? I don't want to take up too much more time, but we do, of course, Inspector Kingsley, appreciate your service and that of so many of your colleagues. And I know there's been a number of transitions within the Grenville detachment, but yes, we're obviously thrilled to have your leadership and your service, and we look forward to working closely with you through the PSB and obviously other community partnerships. I'll leave it there, and thank you for your time, and obviously feel free to stick around, and I'll move on to the next item. I have a cat in the background, so some of you may hear the
Thanks,
cat.
everybody.
Bye, Inspector Kingsley.
And Your Worship, my apologies. There is a motion for each one of the presentations to receive them, please.
Thank you. I'm looking for that as well. Yes. Okay. So Councillor Barkley, perhaps you want to move, and I'll look for a seconder among council colleagues. I see Deputy Mayor, that council received this report. And this is the one specific to the OPP.
Right.
Yes, I got it. Thank you. So we'll do the first one, which is the OPP. That council received this report titled OPP Municipality of North Grenville 2020 Police Services Board and Council Annual Report. As moved by Councillor Barkley and Deputy Mayor, all in favor of receiving the report, colleagues? Good, thank you. Now we'll move on to Councillor Barkley's reports on behalf of the PSB, and I'll look to Councillor O'Sullivan and Councillor Strachan. Would you like to move and second that? Thank you. And I'll call the question unless there's further comment. Seeing none, all in favor, just raise your hands. Thank you. We've received those reports. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Colleagues, you'll note that there are 3 items that are on the consent agenda. Council meeting minutes from June 1, Mississippi Rito Source Protection Plan, and the Rito Valley Conservation Authority minutes. Is everyone in favor of those 3 items for the consent agenda? And if so, can I look to a mover and a seconder? I see Councillor O'Sullivan, Councillor Strachan, and you are moving and seconding the consent agenda as presented. Any objections, colleagues, to the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So with that, we are going to reports. I understand under the Office of the CAO that we were planning to address the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan this evening. That's an effort between 11 municipalities within the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, but we've decided to defer it a week owing to some additional conversations that are being had on the draft plan, which was presented to counties committee of the whole just over a week ago. So we look forward to bringing this item back for more substantial discussion next week, and it's partly to answer some questions various municipalities have on implementation, the formal and informal role of municipalities like ourselves, etc. Mr. Dyke, is there anything you want to add in regards to this item?
No, I think you covered, your worship.
Okay, thank you. So I believe there's a motion to defer, or can we just move on?
There is a motion to refer, Your Worship.
All right, would you mind reading it for us, Ms. Babka-Cormier?
Certainly. That the following matter, Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, be referred to the council meeting of June 22nd, 2021.
Perfect. Okay, so can I get a mover for that, please? I see Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley, so you can move in second. And again, we look forward to having a fairly comprehensive discussion about the status of this plan, our relationship to the counties, and other aspects of how we move forward next Tuesday. So thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good, thank you. Anything else for you, Mr. Dyke?
No, that's fine, your worship.
Okay, so nothing from the Office of the Clerk this evening, and we do have something from Planning and Development, and that is the Emily project. And certainly this is something that is near and dear to the hearts of members of the Rural Affairs and Agricultural Committee. And we've had quite a bit of discussion, and this item was brought forward to council a number of months ago. So this is the follow-up, and I believe Ms. Martin is here to present this evening. Welcome, Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. So the Emily project began after the tragic death of 7-year-old Emily Trudeau in a farm-related accident back in 2014. Response time during the incident was delayed due to the fact that there was no civic numbering at the farm field in which the accident happened. Starting in 2018, the Emily project began to go around and visit county councils across Ontario to raise awareness over civic numbering at farm field entrances. Through there, they were encouraging countywide promotion of programming. In July of 2019, this matter was brought before Leeds and Grenville County Council, and the matter was referred internally, but no further action was taken. So typically from a funding perspective, the Emily project encouraged local county councils to provide some dollar funds to their lower tier municipalities as a way of supporting the program. In lieu of a program in place at our county level, the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee put forth a recommendation back in October of 2020 for council to adopt the Emily project and to apply for funding. So this matter was referred back to members of staff, including the Director of Public Works and the Director of Emergency Protective Services, and myself to follow up further on. And so here we are tonight with the recommendation that the local municipality, being North Grenville, support the program. And in the discussions with the Director of Public Works, we've identified some funding within the roadside signage budget to subsidize the cost of the civic numberings for the first 100 signs at a cost of $25. So our material cost is $50 for a sign. So we're looking at putting together a bit of a subsidy program to help encourage the farm community to install civic numbering. And the other important piece around this is the communication side of things. So in discussions with the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee, it was made very clear that the farm community isn't aware that, one, the municipality does allow for civic numbering at farm field entrances, but they're also not aware of how they should go about in obtaining that. So the municipality will be working on putting out some key information pieces as to how farmers can go about getting a civic number for their farm field, and the offer of a small subsidy to help encourage the installation of civic numbering at farm fields. And this will be done in coordination with the Emily project to ensure that the key messaging around that is consistent with the messaging that they've put out. And there's also the education piece around that as well for farmers, that when you start civic numbering your fields, having a system in which you can remember which field you're in, because the many farm communities have a vast number of farm entrances and farm fields in which they work in. So at this time, that was just kind of like a high level summary of the Emily project. It's been kind of a long time coming and getting this forward, and staff are very excited, as well as the Agricultural Committee, to see this project move forward. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Any questions, council colleagues? I see Councillor Strachan and then Councillor Barkley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Director Martin. I think we've discussed this previously, and I think it's a very worthwhile effort to put forward. And so I think the timing's as good as any to make progress on this. I do have one question about the potential number of properties that would be able to apply for the civic numbering in our municipality. Do we know what those numbers could be? What that number could be?
Without doing an analysis of each and every farm property, the number of entrances, I wouldn't have that number offhand. But I can say we do have quite a significant farming community out there that would benefit from this.
Okay, thank you.
I can add that in discussion at the Ag and Rural Affairs, that some of the members are farmers, and they talked about needing upwards of 20 signs possibly for the size of the holdings that they're working on. How that translates across the municipality, it's hard to say, but I think it's a significant number.
Okay, Councillor Barkley, did you have
anything
to add?
I'd just like to note that part of what we're passing tonight is asking the clerk to circulate to other clerks in the surrounding municipalities and our colleagues in the upper counties. And from what I understand, that usually this project is driven by that upper tier United Counties, Lanark County, etc., and not usually by a lower tier municipality. So we're being very proactive here and starting this program ourselves and hoping that it's adopted across the United Counties.
Yes, well stated. And I will also be alerting my mayor colleagues to the fact that we have made this important step forward. The Emily project was a delegation a number of months ago now at the United County. So I know it's obviously a priority, not just for any one municipality, but for the entire province. if not country. So hopefully the United Counties can do their part in due time, but I'm really pleased to see this come forward. And I know the members of the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee will be reassured. My only question, Ms. Martin, is how quickly can you get a civic sign up upon request? And is there a way to let council know if you come close to using the amount of dollars set aside to subsidize the cost of those signs?
So I will refer this matter to Director Dunlop for the installation of the signs. So typically from a process standpoint, the application does come through planning and building, and then it goes to Public Works for creation. So from that end, we can develop a tracking system internally to gauge where we're at from the number of signs. So based on what staff are recommending, it would subsidize the first 100 signs. So that would just be a matter of identifying if it's for a farm field entrance, here's where we're at within the issuance.
Okay. Director Dunlop, do you have anything else to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Typically, it would take us about from the receipt of the paperwork, once the planning department has assigned the number, approximately 3 weeks to get them installed. We do contract it out to a local sign manufacturer to create. So we will give him a heads up to make sure that he has sufficient stock for the blades, for the creation of the blades. So hopefully that will speed up the process. But we do in kind do the installations for any of the civic numbering within the municipality. So it is also workload dependent for the road crew.
Okay. But if farmer was particularly proactive and got in whatever paperwork is required this summer, is there some expectation that the signs would be up by the end of the summer? Is that a reasonable timeline?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. Anything else, council colleagues? If not, I'll look for a motion. A mover, rather. Councillor O'Sullivan? You're willing to move? And I see Deputy Mayor. Thank you. You're seconding. And of course, the motion is as presented that council supports the installation of civic numbering at farm field entrances, direct staff to prepare an information campaign to promote the installation of civic numbers at farm field entrances in association with the Emily Project, and direct the clerk to circulate this report and resolution to the clerks of local municipalities and the Council of the United Counties to endorse the program countywide. Thank you for the mover and seconder. Any comments or further questions, colleagues? My only final comment is that I think it would be useful, Ms. Martin, to ensure that the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee has that opportunity to review any educational and promotional materials, because I expect they will have some opinions about that. So it's probably a good idea to run it past them. And I believe we will be meeting in July. So it might be a good time to have that conversation. With that, seeing no other comments, I'll call the question. All in favor, please. Good, thank you. And it was great to see that come forward. Okay, so next we're going to Parks, Rec and Culture, and I believe we have Mr. Guy here. And I know Mr. Guy is going to present the results of the Riverside Park Project Feasibility Study. So we're excited to have you, Mr. Guy. We know this has been a fairly significant preoccupation of you and your staff. So look forward to the report this evening. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Peckford, and good evening to you and all of the council members. So yes, I'll start off with my first report of the evening, which is the Riverside Park Project feasibility study. So the purpose of the feasibility study was to take a look at the integration of a new water play feature, an outdoor rink facility, and a new accessible washroom change room building as part of the Riverside Park revitalization plan. As you're aware, in 2013, the municipality retained the services of M&M Group, now WSP, to prepare a Riverside Park revitalization plan. This included the addition of a water play facility. To date, implementation of this plan has been the removal of the former lawn bowling facility to create a more central space for community events, a tree management program, establishment of a more defined park entrance, particularly the entrance to the outdoor pool facility, and the creation of a multi-use pathway within the park. In 2019, WSP was retained to update the park plan. The update included a new building and an outdoor rink. The preparation of this feasibility study was to look at the updated park plan, develop an integrated site plan approach that would see all the new programming elements situated in a functional layout. The key findings from the feasibility study indicated to construct 2 standalone facilities for the outdoor water play and outdoor rink, construct an accessible change room washroom facility. This facility would be integrated with the current outdoor pool building, and to construct a recirculating water system for the water play facility. Class D estimates were provided as part of this study. There are 2 recommendations as part of this report for council's consideration. If moving forward, the next step would be to prepare an RFT for the detailed design and project management for construction. Staff would begin to prepare the tender documents immediately. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Guy. So I'll look to council colleagues for any questions or comments. Certainly think all of council is very pleased to see the continuing efforts when it comes to what effectively is our central park, serving all of North Grenville, and some of the elements to come, should they be approved, I think will ensure that the park remains very accessible and inclusive of all members of our community. But I'll go to Councillor O'Sullivan first. Go ahead, Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Director Guy. This is exciting news that we are going to see revitalization of Riverside Park after a number of years that it's been a desire. And so excellent news, and I want to thank you and your team for getting this done so quickly. I do have a couple of questions. One, in the drawings that were attached, there were tents that were 10 by 10 for swim meets located around the pool. And I'm just wondering, are those temporary for special events only? Because they would kind of block the view of parents or spectators or anybody watching swim meets. So I was just curious about that. And the second question was the ticket station. Will that also incorporate the canteen? Because that was something that is in the existing building right now, and that there was discussion about regarding the temporary staff being able to operate the canteen at the same time. So those were my 2 questions, but I'm very excited about seeing this improvement with accessible washrooms and a better design in the change rooms. It's really great progress. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Councillor O'Sullivan. And to answer your questions, first question is, we did ask in our discussions with WSP and staff that there be an area created, a minimum 10-foot area created around the pool fencing on the south side, a grassy area kept for people who want to come and sit and watch their children in the pool. And those tents are just, they aren't there permanently. It's just showing that people could come and set up a tent during a swim meet or during the swimming lessons in the morning. So we didn't want to lose that where people could come and just naturally have a place to sit between the pool and where the outdoor water play feature would start. And as far as the canteen, it's not something that we discussed at very much length with respect to the building. I know that where it is, if we are going to put a canteen in there once again, or go with a canteen, it would be in relation to where people would come in to pay, so that they wouldn't have to go into any other section of either building, either side of the building to get a freezy or something to drink.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that, especially regarding the tents, because I mean, I go there with grandchildren and watch them swim. So it's great to know that then there would be a shaded area for parents, grandparents, etc., to sit and watch kids. So thanks very much for that. And I think this is great news.
Okay. Any other questions? I see Councillor Strachan and Councillor Barkley. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Guy. I've certainly spent my fair share of hours out there, and it's great to see some changes made to the facilities there. I think it'll be a welcome change for families and the kids and adults as well, I suppose, who use the facilities. The spatial allocation areas that I guess Councillor O'Sullivan referred to is just going to be grassy area, but it was basically put on this map to make sure that nothing else was built in that space. I'm assuming that's correct, if I understand your explanation correctly.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so that's good. It's nice to see, because I know certainly during the swim meets, that's the first thing that goes up. You want to get there early so you get the right spot to put your tent up. So, so that's nice to see that those areas will be at least reserved for that purpose. And then my other comment is, the one shortfall that we have of Riverside Park, especially around the pool area, is the extreme lack of shade. And so, there's not always a place where you can go and get cool and so on. When I see the 100 by 50 foot concrete pad for outdoor sheltered ice rink in the summertime, would that just basically be a concrete pad with, some sort of a roof overhead where you could go to get out of the sun?
We discussed a roof structure over top of that new facility, the outdoor rink. It is included as somewhat of a phase 2 as part of the Class D estimates. And one of the reasons we went with 2 standalone facilities as opposed to an integrated water play outdoor rink was so that the outdoor rink facility could be used for other programming needs during the off season when it's not being used as a rink. One of them could be, for a shelter or community event space, whether you're putting a band underneath there, whether you're running crafts underneath there, whether it's the beer gardens, whatnot. Basketball, floor hockey, or ball hockey. So the idea of putting a roof over it was also considered for those reasons. And also, it's not that far away in relationship to where the pool and splash pad is. So it'd certainly be a nice area for parents or people to sit, or grandparents to sit while the children are in the pool or at the splash pad. So we did speak extensively about a roof structure. It's showing a very large number in the Class D estimate, but it's something that we would seriously consider, of course. If we can do it, we'd love to do it.
Okay, that's excellent. I think it would be a really welcome addition for events in general. But I know that having gone to swim meets around the area here, there are other locations that do have a separate area that's a concrete pad. May not be used for an ice rink in the winter time. However, they've got that area with a concrete pad and a roof overhead where they could run barbecues. They could run food sales during swim meets, for example, and so on. And it's definitely a nice spot to have, especially also because we tend to get, thunderstorms here in the afternoons, that if you need a place to run and duck and hide for a little bit, it gives you a little spot to gather with large enough numbers that usually the majority of people who are there can go to that spot. So thank you very much. I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone into this design.
Thank you.
I think we have Councillor Barkley.
Yes, thanks, Director Guy. I think I speak for everyone that it's great to be talking about this in concrete terms, finally. I had a question. I understand that it's a D-class estimate, so I take it just on faith that the total bill would be 1.7 million to achieve everything that's contained in this feasibility study, all the design elements. And in this year's budget, we put a healthy chunk of change aside, but it's far short of the 1.7 million. We have $750,000 to spend. the different elements in this revitalization of that part of the park, have we prioritized them? I know there are ongoing fundraising efforts, and we just identified a fund geared towards seniors, but so there is some more money to raise, and hopefully from upper levels of government. But if next year we find ourselves with just what we've allocated, we haven't, what would we be attacking first and foremost? Would we be going forward, or would we be waiting till the whole thing is funded?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Barclay. Certainly, if we get through this process, we'll be going out and, as I mentioned in my report, doing a request for tender and getting detailed design and construction, which will give us a better idea of, what some of the costs we'll be looking at moving forward. It is difficult to say at this point we could put one without the other. Certainly the splash pad and even the outdoor rink facilities require access to water for the most part to both of them, and there is a requirement to get for some underground infrastructure into that area to be able to build these facilities. So that's very important. So I think, from what I gather from council and what we are trying to achieve here, we certainly want to look at finalizing and finishing this project. We have a grant submission in right now to receive some money, hopefully, as part of this program. We will continue to seek out grant opportunities. And we'll see once detailed design takes place and construction tenders come in, we'll see where we stand. And it may be that, or at that point, I will have to come back to the council table with that information, and we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at for this year and also for next year moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I don't see any other hands. I do want to recognize that local resident, North Granville resident, Lisa Gallant, who I don't believe joined the call, I'm just looking to the clerk's office to confirm that, did submit some questions around demographic trends and capital investments in Riverside Park. So I just wanted to acknowledge those questions. I'm not sure if she's watching this evening or not. And I think I would say in response to some of her concerns around perhaps perceived declining numbers when it comes to 0 to 9 and the 9 to 15 age groups, that obviously North Granville, among many other communities in Ontario, are seeing huge surges in demand in terms of young families wanting to locate here, seniors wanting to locate here. And we know that these amenities will benefit the whole community, not just the town of Kemptville, and that while there is a neighborhood splash pad in Equinel itself is growing, and there are real limits in terms of their capacity to accommodate a community of 18,000. We know the Equinel splash pad is very well subscribed. And obviously was paid for in part through development charges and cash in lieu when it came to green space. So I think certainly this council, not to speak for colleagues, certainly has embraced the opportunity to revitalize its Central Park. And certainly all of the information we have from our own community and neighboring communities of much smaller size suggests that these amenities, splash pads, outdoor ice rinks are incredibly well utilized and give kids, families, and seniors the opportunity to get outdoors and cool off and enjoy obviously all of the seasons, but when it comes to splash pads, obviously those hot summer days. I apologize, Deputy Mayor. I think I neglected to acknowledge you, so I'll do so now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question for Director Guy. There was also, and residents have brought this up to me in earlier plans, that there may be a paved walking path through the park all the way around and lighted that could be utilized at nighttime for safety and in the winter as well. You know, we plowed the space for, or groomed it for cross-country skiing. Is that still in the plans? Is that a future phase? What's happening with that? Because I do get lots of questions about that. And of course, I think one of our big goals here for council is to make this park a 365 park, that people can use it all year round. And in the winter, we know now it's pretty much dead. We used to have a rink not too far from where you're planning that one, I think, in the old days when I first moved to North Grenville. And so there was activity in the park in those days. And this rink will definitely bring that back. But other things like cross-country skiing through the park and other things, you know, with lighting, proper lighting, whatnot. Anyways, I'll let you answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the question. Yes, we still have plans. It's still part of the plan, a 3-meter paved multi-use pathway around the perimeter of Riverside Park. Actually, we have an application out as we speak to, I think it's through Trillium, looking at some dollars for that particular project. In the past, I applied for funding for that project specifically, I would say about 5 years ago. Unfortunately, we didn't get any money for that at the time, but it's still an integral part of the revitalization plan, and it's still on our list, very much on our list. Right now, we have the pathway, basically a stone dust pathway from the pool over to the tennis court. And as I said, we're hoping to have one around the entire perimeter of the park.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to build on too, you know, obviously the splash pad and the outdoor rink is we're looking at the youth population. I want to point out that we will be installing new light poles and lights for the tennis court, pickleball courts. We've added lines on the tennis courts to accommodate pickleball courts. We continue to look for other potential facilities that we can offer pickleball. Certainly our 2 facilities or at least one facility in a normal year at the North Grenville Municipal Center would be available, one of the rinks available for pickleball, and I have discussed it with members of the pickleball community in the past. So we still continue to look for new amenities, ideas, programming. We've got the YMCA that is partnering with us, and that's the next report coming tonight on the summer day camp, and we continue to communicate with them to look at other types of programming gaps or needs for North Grenville and where the YMCA can help us out. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Thank you. I just had a part B and C to my question. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Director Guy, was, well, I'll give you both my questions right away, or my comments, and you can answer them then. One was, has there been any new conversations with the school, as they own part of that property on Riverside, to either take it over, use it, or whatever their plans are? That's B. And C, I've mentioned this a few times. Again, to allow this park to become a year-round venue, I've mentioned in the past about having market-style sheds, Christmas sheds, whatever you want to call them. You've seen them, most people have seen them in Quebec, and they see them in the European countries where they have Christmas markets. You have these sheds where vendors can sell their goods. You know, they're well lit up, and it creates a nice atmosphere. Something like that in the park could be used all year round. We could rent them, so there's probably a bit of a revenue piece, or at least a break even. But that will also allow businesses to sell their goods, crafts in the summer and the fall, and the winter Christmas markets, that kind of thing. Maybe even in addition to the farmers market, who knows? But I don't know if you've had those discussions, but it's been on my radar, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Director Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have not had any discussions about the market style sheds that you just spoke of, Deputy Mayor, but I'll certainly do some research and find out more about it, and maybe speak to some people who might have some interest, or if you certainly have any contacts for me, I'd be happy to look into that. I'm not quite familiar with the area that the school owns that you're referring to.
It was just my understanding where the track is, I think, on the far end of the park. Is that not owned by one of the schools?
If you're talking directly west of the tennis courts?
I believe so.
That is owned. That is part of the park. We own that, and it's used by the soccer club.
So the school doesn't own any land in the Riverside? I thought they did. No.
No, they own that track and the football, but they don't own directly north of there,
Okay. So
northwest of there.
So it's the track I'm speaking of. Are they still utilizing it as an actual owner, or is everybody just using it? Or like, is there any plans for that, I guess, in the future?
We don't use it. It's not used by, we don't advertise it as part of Riverside Park. It is school property, and I believe it's used by the school for their gym classes and special events and competitions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor O'Sullivan. Go ahead, Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you. Director Guy, there's also been, first of all, I'd like to thank you for moving forward as quickly on the lights at the tennis court and pickleball courts. They're very, people are very happy to have those lights back there. So, as well as the dock at Curry Park is an amazing, busy dock almost every day, but particularly on the weekends. So we're very happy to have that back in place. Back to Riverside Park, there's a lot of interest that's come forward to me about enlarging or revitalizing the skate park, and perhaps the dirt bike track, BMX bike track, I guess it is, and perhaps getting a pump track to put in place there. So I think there's interest in that, and that kind of gets a different demographic age group of kids. The younger ones certainly are on the play structure and on the splash pad, but there's a group of kids, like I'm going to say 11 and up, who really appreciate the skateboard park and the bike track. So I think that would be something that I'd like to see us look forward to for perhaps next year, in the next year's budget, if that can happen. Because I think there's a demographic where their needs are not quite met in the park. So that'd be something. Do you have any further info on that?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Sullivan, and the comment. As you know, you and I have spoke about this as well as the mayor on a couple of different occasions. We have had some interest from the public to do some work or restoration renovations to the skate park. I know for 2021, we don't have a budget to allow us to do that, but we certainly have expressed our interest from certain individual who showed interest in doing this work at the park, that we would at least look to undertake this or consider it at our draft budget for 2022. So it is something that we plan on moving forward with.
Thank you very much. So if in participation, I'm sure Mayor Peckford will put a little plug in for that before the meeting's over. But if we, my grandson for sure would like us to put some of that money towards a skate park or a pump track. So anyway, the youth have spoken on what they would like to do with the 100,000, and let them get out there and everybody get active.
Awesome. Deputy Mayor, is your hand back up, or is it from a previous time? You're back up? Okay, we'll go to Deputy Mayor, and then we might be able to bring this to some conclusion. Go ahead.
This is more on a comment of the demographics that was brought up. And my council colleagues will probably remember a couple of years ago, we had a meeting and the county was talking about our demographics. I and I think several others commented that there was no way the growth that they were projecting was accurate. And of course, a lot of our planning went around some of those demographic numbers. Anyways, it was proven that they were wrong. I still think they're even wrong, but you know, the growth I think is a lot faster than they anticipated, especially from that first report, which again, like I said, they've corrected since. And I would also like to say that being the planning liaison, and Amy could probably, back me up on this, we see a lot coming down the pipeline. We were looking at hundreds of apartments potentially coming down the pipe, several thousand homes coming down the pipe over the next few years. There's a lot of potential growth, which will bring more than enough children, whether the demographics for that age group is dropping or not. Just because of our growth, we're just going to have that many more children. I truly believe that, going through those numbers, we've got a lot of potential growth. I've spoken to many developers, and they know, they're saying, we can't build fast enough. If we had, inventory today, it would be gone tomorrow, that kind of thing. These things are selling out. So there's a lot of growth, and not good and bad. That's a whole other topic for our residents. That we are planning to step in and make sure that design plans are done well, and that the developers know what North Grenville wants when it comes to development. But anyways, that's a little off topic, but I do believe the demographics are easily going to justify the growth, and these amenities that are needed will be much needed in the future.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think from my perspective, this is a once-in-a-century investment to revitalize our park. Certainly the amenities that are now there have stood the test of a number of decades, but the reality is the park is, I think, in urgent need of revitalization. Certainly local businesses in the downtown and beyond, I think, would stand to benefit from a year-round facility that accommodates multiple user groups and multiple age groups. And I know how passionately the Parks and Rec Department is also pursuing that paved track, which will have its own utility and I think benefit for seniors and others in the community. I think we always face this debate in North Grenville about demographics. Every school that's been built has been built and sized too small in the last 10 years. Portables are going up within a matter of years. And I mean 1 or 2 years after a brand new school is being built. The demographic data doesn't actually, in my opinion, bear out what's actually happening in North Grenville. And we see that time and time again. Moreover, I think it behooves us as a growing community to create public spaces that are well suited to all residents in North Grenville. And it doesn't mean that we don't invest in neighborhood parks. It doesn't mean that we don't do everything we can to make sure that neighborhoods are well served, but we're talking about serving a community well and creating public gathering spaces that bring people together, that promote cohesion and inclusiveness. And to speak very specifically to a splash pad, spoken to many parents in this community whose kids are too young, whose kids have mobility issues, and the Kempville outdoor pool will never be of significant value to them. So thousands of communities in North Grenville, in Ontario and Canada, have really seen the wisdom in providing amenities like splash pads for a whole variety of reasons, including their cost efficiency over time. So I think the Parks and Rec Departments has acted wisely. I think they've been extremely well considered, and they've relied a lot on external expertise. And I, for one, can't wait for them to get to the next level for this project. So it's certainly, I think, something that is well past its due date in terms of important and meaningful investments in North Grenville. I'll look to a mover and a seconder. I have Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. And I apologize, Councillor, it's hard to see all the hands all at once. So I've got Deputy Mayor and Councillor Sullivan on this one.
Mr. Guy has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Guy, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to point out too, just one last thing is that through the public consultation activities we did as part of the Parks and Rec Master Plan, it certainly became very evident that people wanted to see a splash pad in Riverside Park. It was number 2 out of the 10 most requested new amenities, and there was 67% of the people that we spoke to or that completed a survey wanted to see a splash pad. So I think it's proven itself that it's an amenity people wanted to see in the park. It's also an amenity that you don't have to register for and sign up for, and certainly having those drop-in type amenities available assists families who maybe can't afford to get involved in a paid program. So I think it's going to be well served in the community moving forward.
Well said. Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate you reminding us of that. And certainly our Parks and Rec master plan was, I think, the #2 effort by Parks and Rec after the Riverside Revitalization Park to really examine what the priorities of the community are. And certainly that was, again, done with the assistance of external expertise. So I think you've done your homework, Mr. Guy. So I've got a mover and a seconder for the motion, and that is that council approves the final feasibility study by WSP and direct staff to prepare a detailed design and construction tender for the Riverside Park outdoor play project. We've got a mover and a seconder. Any final comments or questions, colleagues? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. Thank you. All right, so then we'll go on. I think, Mr. Guy, you're going to talk to us about the YMCA Memorandum of Understanding, which is a wonderful example of a strategic and important partnership in our community. And we're so happy to see them back after a year of hiatus with COVID. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Peckford. So the purpose of this report is to present a memorandum of understanding between the municipality and the YMCA of Eastern Ontario for the implementation of a summer day camp program in North Grenville. The YMCA of Eastern Ontario, leading provider of recreational services, including health, fitness, recreation, and children's day camps. Since 2019, the Parks and Recreation and Culture Department has worked to develop a partnership with the YMCA to bring their expertise to North Grenville, and more specifically, the management of the summer day camp program. The YMCA offer experienced staff and extensive staff training, program enhancement, and a full subsidy program to reduce barriers for families in need. This information is highlighted in the program guide as part of this report. As part of the report, I had mentioned that they were only able to do 10 participants per location due to COVID-19 rules. Since this time, it's been updated to 15 per location. And we hope as restrictions get loosened that they'll be able to offer more spots to local families moving forward. So the draft MOU was developed in consultation with the Executive Director of the YMCA, Rob Adams. The highlights include use of 2 facilities to implement the summer day camp program due to COVID-19 rules, the municipality to pay a $7,500 management fee. The municipality will be responsible for all facility expenses related to the camp program, as well as including utilities. And the YMCA will coordinate all registration services related to the camp. Moving forward, the YMCA and our Recreation Department continue to collaborate on some possible opportunities to increase the Y's presence in North Grenville, such as the implementation of some after-school programs. Also included in my report is a listing of all of their summer children program offerings in North Grenville. There are 3 recommendations within this report for council's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. So any questions in regards to the issues at hand? Councillor Strakian, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Director Guy. So I've heard nothing but good things about the YMCA programs and what they bring to this community and so on. I think that it's been a great addition. I think it's been a very positive partnership. Regarding the programs that are available, I see that they max out at approximately the age of 12. And I'm wondering if we have any way of providing input about what other camps may be available, specifically looking for an older age group for perhaps leadership camps or something along those lines, or more advanced athletic programs or something like that, simply because it stood out to me because I have kids that are nearing that age group, one that's already outside of the age group and wouldn't be able to attend a YMCA program. And knowing that North Grenville is somewhat limited in the different kinds of programs it offers, I would think that there could be an opportunity here for YMCA to expand into that part of the teen demographic.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Strachan. I think that's a great comment. And certainly it's something that North Grenville used to offer as part of their summer program content, was the Leaders in Training program. So I can speak with our recreation coordinator and we can consult with the YMCA that potentially they do offer that type of program, or there might even be some volunteer opportunities for youth to volunteer at the camps here in North Grenville. So I will look into that and I can report back any information I can find out.
fantastic. That's appreciated.
Okay, and I would echo that, Councillor Strakian, and it's one of the benefits of having a Y in your community is often they create those spaces for older teens. And a lot of that space tends to be more informal than formal, but allows for a safe gathering place and an opportunity to access resources. And I know the partnership we currently have with the Y is hopefully just the beginning. They're certainly eyeing North Grenville's growth, and we hope to continue our dialogue with them, given the future of North Grenville when it comes to families and seniors, which are two of the populations they're very focused on serving. So I think you're absolutely right to point out some of the service gaps, and hopefully we can build to accommodate in more, I think, proactive ways those older teens who don't have a lot of gathering places at this point in time here in North Grenville. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder unless there are further comments. Councillor Strakian, would you like to move? And I'll take Councillor Barclay as a seconder then. And that is, of course, that council authorized the municipality to enter into an MOU with the YMCA of Eastern Ontario for the operation of the summer daycare program in 2021, that the municipality pay a $7,500 management fee to the YMCA to cover facility operating costs related to the summer day camp program, that the municipality will be responsible for all facility and utility costs, and to authorize the Director of Parks, Rec and Culture or his designate to sign and execute the MOU with the YMCA. Mr. Guy, perhaps you can just make that distinction in points 2 and 3 between operating costs and facility and utility costs. We're paying YMCA a management fee, and can you describe exactly what's involved in the management fee? I'm wholly supportive. I think that's good value for money, but can you just explain it for the purposes of those listening from our community?
The management fee is basically for them to implement and oversee the day camp program and to be responsible for all administrative activities relating to the camp, registration, dealing with parents, cancellations, refunds, everything related to the camp program, hiring of staff, supervision of staff. The facility costs would be any capital works that might be done, any repairs or maintenance of the facility that might come about while the camp is in operation. Utility costs such as hydro or gas costs would be the responsibility of the municipality for the 2.5 months or 2 months that the camp is in operation.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. All right, I'll call the question unless there's any further questions. Seeing none, all in favor? Good, thank you. That motion carries. We appreciate that moving forward, Mr. Guy, and I understand that registration is already open on the YMCA website for these programs. Is that right? I know there's lots of parents looking for camps.
That is correct.
Okay, excellent. All right, we don't have emergency protective services this evening. Anything on the agenda? No informational reports. Correspondence has been dealt with through the consent agenda. So I'll go to Councillor Strakian for a notice of motion. But before I do, Jill just reminded me we should celebrate participation. We remain #1 North Grenville, and I know the municipality and so many clubs, fitness groups, churches, schools, our neighborhoods are part of a tremendous effort. So after all of that discussion about the park, we should salute all members of our community for participation. Mr. Guy?
Really sorry, but I'd like to add one more thing.
Okay.
I'm not sure if council's aware or members of the public, but Kevin Henry, our facility superintendent, retired. His last day was last Friday, the municipality. Kevin worked for the town of Kempville and the municipality of North Grenville for 35 years in the Parks and Recreation and Culture Department. He served this community, as I said, for the last 35 years very professionally. He started at the old Kempville Community Center. It was a huge part of the construction and development of the North Grenville Municipal Center. and you know, met a lot of people, served this community as best as he could and as good as anybody ever could. So I just wanted to point that out, and he's in now his well-deserved retirement, and wish him all. We want to wish him all the best.
Thank you.
I just
Rye.
like, yeah, applause for Kevin. I just like to say Kevin was the first municipal employee I had any dealings with, and he certainly set the bar high for customer service. I think he was a great employee, and certainly helped me out in many sticky situations with Maplewood Hall back in the day, and continued to provide great service to this community. So I wish him well in his retirement. And you, the screen locked up there, Mark. I didn't hear where he was right now.
Oh, he's just at his house, as far as his home, as far as I know.
Okay, I thought it headed for the hills. Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Yeah,
I don't
thank
know
you.
how a 45-year-old can put 35 years in and retire so young.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I don't think, you know, there's a better illustration of the fruits of his labor over those years than the high degree of engagement we're seeing with participation, because clearly he sowed the seeds over 3 decades of getting this community active and motivated and engaged and feeling really connected, I think, to recreational amenities. So thank you very much, Kevin. I know staff and others have been taking different opportunities to celebrate you, but I think a whole community is indebted to you, and what a better way to celebrate your retirement than to compete with such aplomb in the Participation's most active community challenge. So we wish you well. Okay, Councillor Strachan, over to you for notice of motion, or we're beyond notice of motion now. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As last week, the notice of motion was raised regarding the creation and for an Indigenous land acknowledgement for the municipal council to endeavor to engage with the right Indigenous representatives in our community, and making sure that we have some thoughtful ways forward in creating something that I believe is long overdue. And I know that this has been a priority for council for some time, and it's no time like the present to make a move in this direction. I think I said a lot last week. The recommendation is as it stands in the notice of motions, and I'm prepared to read it should this be the appropriate time. Sorry, the sequence of events right now is I'm a bit unsure about this. I know I got stumped by it last week. So that's all I will say at this time.
I think you can move the motion at this stage of the game. Ms. Babcock-Cormier, do I have that right?
Yes, Your Worship.
So the recommendation at this time is that council direct staff to report back to council concerning the appropriate wording of an Indigenous land acknowledgement, ensuring that such acknowledgement is drafted for council's consideration after consultation with relevant and appropriate Indigenous and related organizations.
Thank you. So I'll look for a seconder for that motion, please. I do need a seconder. Councillor Barkley, thank you. Okay. And any discussion at this time? I know that Councillor Strachan, I think Mr. Dyke has taken a look at where staff can take some of those important first steps to create opportunities for dialogue and relationship building, which, as you've suggested, are so fundamental to this process. Councillor Strachan?
The only points that I would like to add, Madam Mayor, is that the intent behind this is to take on this effort to make sure that it's done in a deliberate and thoughtful manner. And so the considerations of conversations with Indigenous members of our community is very important, and that we recognize that this is not something that will be done overnight, that it will take some time to address this appropriately, and we want to do as best a job as we can. And I know that staff will do their due diligence as well. And so if the public members of residents in our community are looking for a land acknowledgement that will be in place in the next week or two, that's not likely to happen. And we want to make sure that we give it the appropriate amount of time. And so that's, I just put that as a placeholder in advance of the forthcoming discussions.
Perfect. Mr. Dyke, is there anything you want to add at this time?
No, I think it covers, your worship. We are targeting to bring something back to council in the early fall.
Okay, fantastic. Colleagues, any other comments or questions at this stage? Obviously, this is very early in the process. So. Okay, seeing none, I have a mover and a seconder, and I'll call the question then. All in favor, please. Good, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Strakian, for formalizing the effort, much appreciated. And now we will go to a period of questions from any member of our community or members of the media who may be on the call this evening. Ms. Bacquart-Cormier, have you received anything?
No, not that hasn't already been addressed, Your Worship.
Okay. And could you make sure that we did, in fact, address Ms. Gallant's questions? I know she had submitted 5 around demographics, demographic considerations. Just want to make sure that we had addressed them. I believe we have. As you do that, maybe I'll go to members of the media. Paulina, I see you here. And I see a Rachel. I don't know if Rachel is a member of the media. Any questions from either of you? Seeing nothing. Oh, there we go.
Oh, hi. Yes, I am a member of the media. I just started with the North Grenville Times.
Welcome.
But I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Everett, and I don't think we see your full last name, so.
It's Everett Fry, hyphenated.
Okay. Welcome to the North Grenville Times.
Thank you so much.
And Your Worship, Paulina Habaka has confirmed that she has no questions for this evening.
Okay. And do you think we have addressed Ms. Gallant's questions as they were submitted when you look at the themes, Ms. Bacquart-Cormier?
I would say that that's the case.
Okay, great.
However, Mr. Dyke has raised his hand.
Okay, Mr. Dyke.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to Ms. Gallant's questions, we will make sure we follow up with a written version of her response to her questions that we will post along on the MISO webpage as well for information.
Perfect. Okay, that's helpful. I just want to make sure that those questions are given due consideration. I know it's really tough for members of our community to sometimes join virtually by virtue of having rural broadband issues or other competing commitments. So thank you. That's reassuring to me. If there is nothing else, I see Deputy Mayor. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
The only item I want maybe cover a little bit more. It's not direct, but in the questioning, it was a lot of the questioning was around the dollars. And I'd like to say to our community that this council has been very proactive on what our budget looks like. We've been proactive on reducing the amount of tax that we collect every year as a percentage. We've got a healthy budget. We're very astute to what's happening on our budget. We're very concerned. I think we're also making sure that we're spending the money correctly, but staying within our means, of course. And we also would like to reiterate, if residents haven't come to our budget meetings, which I'm assuming a lot haven't because we don't get a big turnout, but we are watching things closely. We have very healthy reserves. Our new CAO and finance people are on the ball. And I think this council is very concerned in making sure that we're spending the dollars appropriately and staying within our means, of course, and reducing taxes where we can. That's all.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think it is a good reminder to the community that we have reduced the tax rate increase every year since we've come in. And that has been a key priority of this council. So I know sometimes it may feel that some of these capital investments in recreation and parks look pricey, but in the end, these are long-term, multi-decade investments that have proven to be very beneficial and valuable to the community. And of course, we all have different opinions on what those things are, but you're absolutely right that there is a zeitgeist of fiscal conservatism among this council, but we also recognize the need for strategic investments. And this is what they are in the present moment, or this is among some of them when we speak about recreational investments. But thank you, Deputy Mayor. That's a good reminder. Okay, colleagues, if there's nothing else, then I will go to close the meeting. And that is a confirmation bylaw that I'll ask Ms. Babcock-Cormier to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. That bylaw 66-21 to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on June 15, 2021 be adopted and passed.
Thank you. I'll look to a mover. Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Strakian will move and second that. I'll call the question. All in favor? And I'll now move to adjourn. And we are looking to adjourn, colleagues, at 8:13 p.m. So I'll look for a mover for the adjournment. Deputy Mayor, seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Strakian. And that is to adjourn at 8:13 p.m. I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. All right. Get out there, council. Thank you, staff. And let's be sure to shop local at every turn as we support our community in revitalizing, and make sure you get your second shot. There are increasingly openings at pharmacies and at our North Grenville COVID vaccination center, where I believe Councillor Sullivan has been doing some time. So maybe you'll have the pleasure of being vaccinated by Councillor O'Sullivan if you make the right appointment at the right time. Thank you for your service, Councillor O'Sullivan. Take care. All the best.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
And keep walking, keep counting those
Gold.
steps.
Go for gold.
Go for gold.
Bye.